This Friday, there's been some good news if you are someone who enjoys a high-skilled poker game or bridge, rummy, or even if you like to bet informally on cricket with your family, etc. The Law Commission, it seems, has come to the view that illegal betting is not working out. It's not doing anything to suck out black money or to curtail the role of the mafia and the underworld. And therefore, the Law Commission has actually recommended that it's time to legalize betting and to legalize sport betting. Let me go across to Abhimanyu Sharma for this. Abhimanyu, while the Law Commission recommends this, the government's not bound to accept it. It's a recommendation to the Law Ministry, and already you're hearing voices from the opposition that this is unacceptable. So maybe we won't see this before 2019, but never before have you got a report favoring gambling.
Well, exactly, and although the recommendation has been made in favor of legalizing regulated gambling and betting, of course, there were opinions also taken from various stakeholders across different states and also private people across the country, and there were varied voices which had come. Apart from voices of opposition, there were also voices of support, and what the recommendations have spoken about in the report sent to the Law Ministry, they clearly indicate that a complete ban on betting and gambling is not working out, and it has also made a reference to several societies and countries where the ban does not exist and where the ban exists. And of course, there are moralistic reasons and there are certain other moral reasons on the basis of which several bans are imposed, and there are several states in India too, for example, which practice prohibition. But as far as the success of such schemes is concerned, that is something which has always remained circumspect, is something on the basis of which the observations and the recommendations have been made, which have particularly pointed out that in order to reduce the interference of underworld and mafia and to suck out black money from the market, it's imperative that regulated betting and gambling be permitted, be allowed in accordance with law. And if at all a law is made to this effect, there would be more people, more businesses getting into such a business. And if at all it's a skill-based game, if it's a skill-based betting similar to what horse racing is, it would be easier for that to be regulated. Additionally, it will also provide revenue to the exchequer, apart from weeding out unscrupulous elements, people from the underworld who are operating in this domain as of now. It has also stated that right now the loss of revenue, the imputed loss of revenue which the state experiences, even when such activities keep on taking place illegally, it has also taken into consideration that with the advent of online betting, it has been extremely difficult for the state to regulate betting and gambling per se. And if at all it is allowed in a regulated way, there would be licenses issued by licensing authorities to the same effect in accordance with law, if at all a law is brought in by the union government, and it would be made tax compliant as well as compliant with several ID cards like the Aadhaar card, in order to ensure that no unscrupulous elements exist in this domain.
Okay, so that's what's happened as far as the Law Commission's recommendations goes, that it's time to suck out black money, it's time to cut out the underworld and maybe have regulations for sports betting to regulate gambling at large. And what's also interesting is that they want Aadhaar and PAN to be linked when it comes to individual gambling, and that's of course to ensure that people don't use their black money for such activities. The other recommendation, as was being pointed out, is it shouldn't be for FDI, but it should be to Indian entities. Do we have a guest with us now? Okay, we are trying to get you experts to decode this. We'll revisit it in just a bit. But till then, that's of course one of the big stories that we are tracking over here. Pankaj, do you have anything to say on this? Let's just bring up the Delta Corp intraday chart, if nothing else. We also had seen SEBI approve Nazara. It was going to come out with this IPO. That company is perhaps the biggest competitor that you have to Delta Corp. Delta Corp, of course, being listed. Let's bring up the intraday chart. As you can see, a strong gap up opening for Delta, up by nearly 3% in trade. Do we have Vaibhav Gagar with us?
Nayantara, if you just look at this entire, thing that is coming up. It's something which has never happened. So let's just wait and watch as to how the things are. Right now the stock is up around 2%, but if it is legalized, at least there is always this buzz. What's happening with Delta Corp ships, what's happening with things in terms of gambling in Delta Corp, whether Goa would one day shut it down or not. So all these rumors just keep going around as far as Delta Corp and some of the other casinos are concerned. But now, okay, let's get in some perspective. We have Vaibhav Gagar with us, managing partner, Gagar and Partners. Vaibhav, what's your first reaction to this news flow that law panel says to legalize gambling?
Well, a very positive development, something that was eagerly awaited and anticipated, in fact, by the people who follow the gaming laws in India. And this has been developing over quite a period of time. So you had the Supreme Court directing the Law Commission to come up with a report, obviously because there was, a lot of reasons actually to try and regulate it and legalize it. It's quite obvious that it's going to actually get things better. So with this Law Commission report, I'm hoping it's going to give the necessary impetus for the government to look at all issues. I mean, it curbs a lot of evil, regulates the market, it ensures a lot more revenue. It's trying to curb something or regulate something which can't be curbed otherwise. So I think it's a very, very positive move and would lead to some serious strides forward.
Roland Lander is also now joining us, CEO of All India Gaming Federation. Roland, thanks so much for taking out time for us. What will be your first reaction to this news flow?
Yeah, so as the AIGF, we've been working with the Law Commission. We've, submitted on behalf of the industry and our stakeholders a report to them. A report that, covered most of these points. And for us, we on behalf of the industry, we are extremely positive that, this is a right step in the right direction as far as this industry is concerned.
Good afternoon, Roland and Vaibhav. This is Nayanthara joining in from the New Delhi studio. Roland, the other question I wanted to ask you about this is, and if you go through the report, it's talking about betting, it's talking about gambling. So would that also therefore be the corollary be that other sports which there's a perception are believed to be gambling related will not be included in this ambit and is life as normal for them? I'm talking about poker here, I'm talking about bridge here, I'm talking about rummy here, where you do have instances of different high courts having different verdicts on such sports.
Those are more or less considered games of skill, so those will be outside of the ambit. This is mainly to do with betting on sports.
You have done, you work very closely with the gaming industry. It's no secret in the legal circles that you've done a lot of M&A transactions that when it comes to the gaming industry. So tell us, Vaibhav, that while the Law Commission is being applauded, it's very far from becoming a reality. We are in an election year. Which government is going to have the might and to do this, because it will come under major criticism of the opposition? Would that be correct?
I tend to agree with you, Nayanthara. I mean, I think while this is a huge step forward, but I don't see this culminating into a law in the next, 3 to 4 to 5 months, purely because of the election mode. But what this does is that whenever the election happens and the new government comes in, they are going to be looking into this aspect. It's a huge money spinner for the government of India, and it actually curbs a lot of evil. So while at one level, people think that it would be a risky move, I think it'll be a brave move, but not risky at all. It is going to get a lot of support from the community. Because what are they saying? They are saying we are only trying to regulate something that's already very prevalent and bring on board something so that people cannot be affected negatively if the regulations were to be adopted. So actually, I don't see where the risk lies, but yeah, probably political sensitivities may not allow it to happen at this immediate juncture. Having said that, I still have my fingers crossed. You never know. It could be a brave move forward. And all authorities, I can tell you, are actually in sync to say this needs to be legalized. So I'm actually quite optimistic. If not now, in the next 3 months, certainly in the coming year, I think there'll be a very positive change.
Roland, what will be your perspective on this? Where do you think, what are the benefits of going ahead and legalizing it? How do you see things changing if there are certain norms which are already set up for such sort of things going ahead?
Yeah. So, as I said, on behalf of the industry, we look at this as an extremely positive step. We feel that, there are instances, this will be a huge boost because there are two parts to it. One is obviously the positives that come out of it, some of which Vaibhav mentioned, like, none of the illegal systems that are prevalent do not pay any taxes to the government. And so that's a huge loss to the exchequer. That is one. The negatives are obviously the entire, money laundering, the funding of terrorism, the foreign exchange leaving the Indian shores, all of that will be taken care of through this the legalization process. And since this is already happening, that's what the Law Commission is emphasizing on. Since it is already happening in such a large way, the FICCI figures indicate a 3 lakh crore annual industry. It will bring everything in the right perspective, and so we are extremely happy that over the last 1.5 years, since we submitted the report, and it's come to fruition now, we are extremely happy as industry.
Vaibhav, do you want to give us a sense of that if the government were to accept it, whether it's this government in its last year term or the next government, if whatever happens after 2019, if this were to happen and it was to be legalized the way the Law Commission has recommended, is it going to have to be a central act and then that would have to be adopted by the states? How is it going to work?
So it can happen in two ways, Nayantara. One is that we must realize that gambling laws are otherwise a stateless subject. So every state, even today as it stands, has the right to actually regulate and legalize it. And for instance, that's why Goa has legalized casinos, and so has Sikkim, because it's within their domain. However, what the Law Commission has interestingly said is that this can also be looked at from a central module where the government of India actually prescribes a model law, almost akin to a RERA sort of a model. And every state then has the option of adopting that model law and making it applicable to them, because the moment it gets into the IT framework or the online framework versus the offline framework, then actually these boundaries start blurring, and it would be a central law with the option of the states to jump on board as well. So you have both options. As of today, every state has the right to legalize this and regulate it without the intervention of the center. However, the moment it wants to be able to operate in other states, then the center needs to kick in. So it's going to be a parallel option and an action which can happen over here. And I'm expecting the center to step in, because at the end of the day, that's where the real revenue flow would come in from. That's where the control would come in from. That's where the confidence would come in from. And a model law can be placed. Otherwise, you'll have different states putting different laws in place, and it could lead to a bit of a harakiri as well.
Right. Roland, just a last word. Even if it is implemented, first, of course, is the act that Vaibhav was just talking about. But what are the other challenges to implement it?
So, I don't think if it's the will, I don't see too many challenges, because there are ample of international best practices which we have some of which have been alluded to in the recommendations. And, I don't see, the other social issues, very much, technology is going to take care of all of it, whether it's underage, people participating, or players, losing their incomes or things like that. All of that, really can be taken care of by technology. And so I don't see too many challenges to this being implemented if there is, the model law that can be implemented.
Okay, so Roland and Vaibhav, I'm going to thank you so much for joining us here. India is absolutely obsessed when it comes to cricket, and that's what even the Law Commission notes, that maybe it's better to regulate it as opposed to having it so illegal, because it's done nothing to suck out black money or to cut down the role of the underworld. That's Delta Corp for you, up by about 2.5%. In fact, if you look at the large gaming industry at large, it's certainly been a very exciting one from an M&A perspective. A lot of transactions that have taken place. You also have the likes of Nazra that have been looking for an IPO, have the approval of SEBI. Are we going to see a rewriting of the valuations for such firms? I guess only time will tell. For now, this is just at a recommendation stage before the Law Ministry.